Hey, preggers! So I have about 1 month left before my due date, and I am crossing my fingers that I don't go early because I am not ready in any way, shape, or form to have another baby in the house yet. But I started to compile a list of all the things that I'm doing, both health related, self care related, and just trying to prepare for my ideal birth. And I wanted to share that list with you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a health coach, I'm a crunchy mama, and I come to you each week with healthy pregnancy, baby, etc. tips. And if you're interested and that jives with you, please subscribe to my channel, Paleo Preggers. So let's get to it. Here's my list for what I'm doing to prep in these last 4 weeks before birth. So number one, and this is probably going to be the longest one just because I think it's so important, but increase your intake of healthy fats. Ditch the vegetable oil and increase your intake of like fatty fishes, especially omega-3. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a bit. Olive oil, avocados, sardines, if you can stomach them, salmon, eggs, although make sure you definitely have the yolks, good saturated fats, that kind of thing. Personally, I'm also trying to get more diligent about taking my cod liver oil just because it's not with the rest of my vitamins, so I tend to neglect it a little bit more. And here's why this is especially important right now. Fetuses don't store much fat until the third trimester, but that's when they begin storing fat rapidly, and it's mostly saturated and monounsaturated fats. So they store the types of fat that's going to continue to build their brains because your brain is made mostly of fats. So you got to make sure that they have building blocks that are available for him or her after birth. High omega-3 intake during the third trimester boosts sensory, cognitive, and motor development in infants. The brain greatly increases in size during the last trimester, and it needs a lot of omega-3 to do it correctly. So much of mom's omega-3 is fed to the baby that if she doesn't replace it, she's barely going to have any left for herself or her future babies. So make sure you're getting a lot of omega-3, ideally in the full last trimester, but definitely in the last few weeks. Number two is eat your dates. I did a video on this a couple weeks ago. Eating dates helps thin the cervix, and there's evidence that women are more likely to have spontaneous birth and easier labors if you have dates every day for the month leading up to birth. So eat 3 to 7 dates per day, depending on the size of the dates. If they're bigger, you can have less of them, but that's definitely something to incorporate. Number 3 is to drink raspberry leaf tea. If you drink it throughout your pregnancy, it's known to tone the uterus. So that's something that I recommend doing throughout pregnancy, to drink maybe 1 cup a day. It also has the reputation of helping to induce labor, which maybe it depends on the person. It did not help with my previous pregnancy. But if you do want to help induce labor yourself once you're closer to your due date, you could start bumping up your intake and start to drink 2, 3, or maybe even more cups a day. Just talk to your midwife or doctor just to verify that they're cool with it. Number 4 is to start giving yourself a perineal massage around 36 weeks. You want to try doing this 3 to 5 times per week to just stretch the area. It is really uncomfortable at first, but it's recommended as a way to prevent tearing. It's just kind of like any muscle. So if you stretch it, it gets a little bit more pliable. It is a hard area to reach when your belly is so big. So you'll want to prop yourself on pillows and maybe get a mirror. And if you can get down there with your thumb, ultimately, if this is your perineum, you kind of want to go to the sides and pull out this way, and the same with the other way, and kind of go down and around. And sort of just get the different areas in and around that bottom section. I actually use my pelvic floor wand, which does make it easier to reach, but I also don't get the feedback with my hand, which is also kind of good to feel, to see how much give the muscles down there have. If it is too difficult to reach, you can also get your partner involved, but it can be a little bit more intense, and you guys would need to communicate really well in regards to, go lighter, go harder, it's too intense, that kind of thing. And this is also a great time for the next one, which is number 5, to practice breathing techniques. Now, especially since perineal massage is uncomfortable, birth can also be uncomfortable, to say the least, which is why it's a great practice session for birth. So, while you're massaging your perineum, just practice the breathing techniques that hopefully you're learning in order to stay relaxed throughout birth. Also, every time you have to take a bowel movement, practice your J breath, which you're basically, breathing in and kind of helping to push your baby out with visualizing, pushing out. You don't always want to do that unless you are actually pushing something out, which is why you want to do that during a bowel movement. I'll put links to a couple different videos of people talking about different breaths that you can do if you're not aware of the different ones. But this is definitely something to try to do in order to be able to stay relaxed throughout birth. Number 6 is to prep your birth kit. So whether you're doing a home birth, a hospital birth, at a birth center, I'll probably make a whole video about this alone, but basically bring the things with you and have them on hand that you want available. So things like certain essential oils that you love, chapstick and straws are super common to include, different affirmations that you want to hang on the wall, different birth art, a cheat sheet for your husband or partner, which I've talked a little bit about, but basically what to say, what words resonate with you, different places on your body to give you massages that you really like. You might also want to have cute clothes on hand to have for photos, things like that. But come up with a list and start prepping your birth kit so you know what to do. Also, postpartum, think about that. If you want to buy or put together an herbal sitz bath, different nursing stuff that you want to have available. Frozen witch hazel pads, I'm told, are amazing. Like I said, I'll definitely put together a whole video on that, but just start putting together a list of all the things that you want and start gathering the things, because you never know when you could start to pop. So number 7 is to create a music playlist and organize just all the tracks that you want to listen to. During my first birth, I basically bought a Spotify account just for the month, and I had 2 different separate lists. I had a dance labor playlist and a chill labor playlist. I also did a separate thing for hypnobirthing guided meditations. If you have different visualizations or different birthing music that you like or things that are relaxing, I do recommend putting together something that is a little bit more upbeat and is a little bit more chill, just to have the variety based on whatever mood you're in at the time. But try to put together something like that, or just find something somebody else created and use that. I definitely recommend buying it so you don't have the commercials, because nobody wants to listen to a commercial while they are in the throes of labor. Number 8 is stretching. So I try to incorporate this at least once every night. Doesn't always happen. Sometimes if I'm playing with my son on the floor, I'll try to incorporate it into my day, or just try to work them in as I can. But there are certain stretches that are really helpful and can kind of help prepare your pelvic floor and all of the muscles in your lower body, especially for birth. So one specifically is a hip flexor stretch. This is also great to relax the psoas, which you want to be able to do during birth. Hamstring stretches are also really great. Adductor stretches, so that you can either do kneeling adductor stretches, or you can do a prone adductor stretch. You could do the butterfly. Also hip stretches, so either seated hip stretches or pigeon pose in yoga. So I think all of these can help you. Try to work in a couple a day here or there, or at the end of your day if you have the time then. Number 9 is to plan your food for birth and postpartum. So you definitely want to have snacks on hand for labor. So whether it be smoothies or dates or berries or protein bars, anything that you think could be helpful or useful to just have on hand, something super quick. Those are probably the best snacks that I would recommend. If you're doing a hospital birth, I know they often discourage you from eating. You could always sneak some in your bag. It's up to you if you want to risk it or not. But it really depends on how long your labor is. If you have a really long labor, having something on hand to sneak in is always beneficial. Also, one idea that I didn't do during my first birth, but I think could be really fun if you have the time and depending on how labor is progressing, but to plan during your early labor to bake yourself a birthday cake. And I love this idea. I think I'm going to try depending on how it goes. I'm going to have a recipe and all the ingredients, and I would love to do this during early labor. So this is going to be something that I plan for. So after I give birth, I'm able to relax and have a nice meal and then enjoy a birthday cake, or just skip the meal and have the birthday cake anyway. But yeah, I think that that's a fun idea. The other thing that I did not do, although it is commonly recommended, is to prep meals in advance or find some kind of delivery service so you don't have to cook for a few days after labor. I do definitely recommend this. Eating for me postpartum ended up being a very big challenge, just finding the time to eat. And I didn't have a lot of help at the time. So that is something I definitely recommend trying to do, making freezer meals, different kinds of things in order that you can just quickly heat up, because eating while breastfeeding or eating in and around breastfeeding and holding baby and dealing with all the new things can be really hard. So definitely try to prep some meals in advance. And lastly, number 10, and this is something that I have finally decided to treat myself to, it is to hire somebody to come and clean my house. My house is a disaster all the time. First of all, hiring somebody will make it so that I clean up all the clutter prior to them coming, but to just get a deep clean of the house done, I don't need to worry about it. I am gonna have them use my own cleaners, so I know that they're green and there are less chemicals floating around, which I don't want, especially when I'm bringing a new baby into the house. But aside from that, it's not that expensive in the grand scheme of things. So if you don't have the time, if you don't have the energy, if you don't have the motivation, hire somebody if you can. So that's my list. Hopefully this was a little bit helpful and give you different ideas on how to incorporate different things that make you feel a little bit better about welcoming a baby into your world in the next month or a few months, whenever you're watching this. These are just what I'm doing. I'm less worried about what happens when baby comes, because once the baby's here, there's plenty of other things that you can get or need to do. Babies really just need love and attention. So there's not a lot of things that they actually need, in my opinion, but you can always add those later. Hopefully this was helpful. If you want to get more pregger and baby tips, please subscribe to my channel, Paleo Preggers, and hopefully I'll see you next time.